allowed Islam to exist. Islam did not emerge by chance. It came to be because God permitted it, and though it may surprise you, Islam is also part of God's plan. But why? Why would God raise up a religion that denies Christ and would attack his people for centuries? The answer is in the Bible. It's all there from the very beginning. And in the beginning, God made a promise to Abraham. I will make your descendants like the dust of the earth. But there was a problem. Sarah, his wife, was barren and far too old. The years slipped by, and the promise seemed to fade in the heat of the desert. How could God's plan ever come true? In desperation, Sarah made a decision that would change history forever. She told Abraham to have a child with her Egyptian servant named Hagar, and from that union, Ishmael was born. Abraham was already 86 years old, and for 13 long years, Ishmael had been his only son. God had other plans for the main line of his covenant, but he did not reject Ishmael. On the contrary, he also made him a promise that would be remembered for centuries. Behold, I will bless him and make him fruitful and multiply him exceedingly. He will father 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. Soon after, the miracle Abraham and Sarah had waited for all their lives arrived. Sarah, old and barren, became pregnant and conceived the child of promise, Isaac. Isaac was born when Abraham was 100 years old. He was the heir to God's original promise. But now, in Abraham's household, there were 2 sons, 2 promises, and the tension kept building. On the day they celebrated Isaac's weaning, the conflict erupted. Ishmael, who was already a teenager, mocked little Isaac, who was still just a baby. Sarah saw it, and in that mocking she didn't see childish play. She saw a threat to her son's destiny. So she gave Abraham a blunt, direct command. Cast out this slave woman and her son. Abraham's heart broke. Ishmael was his own flesh and blood, his son. How could he send him out into the wilderness? Then God stepped in and said to him, don't be distressed about the boy, for through Isaac your offspring will be reckoned. I will also make the son of the slave into a nation, because he is your offspring. Heartbroken, Abraham rose early, gave Hagar bread and a water skin, and sent them away. Mother and child wandered aimlessly through the wilderness of Beersheba until the last drop of water was gone. Shattered, Hagar laid the boy, dying, beneath a shrub, and walked away in anguish, so she would not see him die. But God heard the boy's cry. And here's the astonishing part. The angel of God called to Hagar from heaven, what's wrong, Hagar? Do not be afraid, for God has heard the boy's voice. Lift him up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation. In that instant, God opened Hagar's eyes. Right in front of her, miraculously, was a well of water. God protected them and saved Ishmael's life. Ishmael grew up in the desert, became a skilled archer, and lived in the region of Paran. His mother found him a wife from her homeland, Egypt, and God's promise came to pass exactly as he said. Ishmael had 12 sons. The Bible names them one by one, and they became princes of 12 tribes. The Bible even tells us where they lived, from Havilah to Shur, which is opposite Egypt. Fascinating, because that vast stretch is the very heart of the Arabian Peninsula. They did not live in some distant land. Just as it had been prophesied, they dwelled in the presence of all their brothers, in constant contact and tension with the descendants of Isaac. Thus the Bible reveals that the destiny of Ishmael and his descendants was no accident. It was the fulfillment of a promise from God, a plan he himself ordained and blessed. 2 sons, 2 promises, 2 great peoples who, to this day, live face to face, just as it was written. Ishmael became the great patriarch of the Arab people, the lineage from which Islam would emerge. Centuries passed. Israel received the law, built the temple, and witnessed the birth of the Messiah. Meanwhile, the children of Ishmael multiplied in the wilderness. Tribes like Kedar, mentioned by the prophet Isaiah, ranged across northern Arabia. They were a people of caravans, tough and scattered. The promise of a great nation seemed forgotten, lost to the sands of time. Their most important city was Mecca. There, a large and powerful clan, the Quraysh, tended a sacred house of worship called the Kaaba. But there was a problem. That ancient sanctuary had been filled with 360 idols. People worshipped these figures as if they were gods, one for each day of the year. The descendants of Abraham had forgotten the one true God of their ancestor Abraham. Then, in the year 570, a man was born who would change everything. Muhammad ibn Abdullah of the Quraysh tribe, later known as the Prophet Muhammad. Muhammad was orphaned as a child. He grew up traveling with caravans, learning the trade and watching people worship idols. Over time, he earned a wide reputation for honesty. They called him Al-Amin, which means the trustworthy, because he never lied, and people entrusted their goods to him without fear. But at 40, while meditating in a cave, he said he was visited by the angel Gabriel. The angel, he said, delivered a clear message. There is only one God, and all statues and false gods must be destroyed. This was his first vision, and with it he began to preach that there is only one God, whom he called Allah, and that people must stop worshipping idols. At first, almost no one in his own city believed him. They mocked him and persecuted those who followed him. They suffered greatly, tortured and driven out.